years or thereabout, not less than 100 judges have been kicked out of the bench on the recommendation of the NJC. So the judiciary is the only institution that has an inbuilt mechanism for dealing with misconduct among all the organs of the government. And the NJC has, within the last 18 years, tried as much as possible, depending on the leadership of the organization, of the body, to deal with cases of misconduct. Along the way, serious errors have been made. I mean, I just read the cases of judges that were pardoned or warned during the last meeting of the NJC. There are judges who committed lesser offenses who were kicked out of the bench. So there has to be, the NJC has to formulate common standard so that allegations of selective persecution is not sustained against the body. And the pressure should also not be given. There are certain judges who are well connected or untouchable. If there are allegations against any judge, they should be dealt with as speedily as possible so that there are no questions left unanswered.
You did say that the NJC has been proactive depending on the leadership.
Oh yes, oh yes.
So who should be tasked with this reform?
It has to be a constitutional amendment. The Constitution has to be amended to remove sitting judges from the NJC so that you can have one of the retired Chief Justices as the chair. And that will also free the Chief Justice and other members of the panel of the enormous responsibility in that body so that they can sit in their court and do their work. I think it's generally accepted that there has to be a reform of the NJC in a way that you do not have sitting judges as members. It should be independent of judges so that the body can handle cases of discipline without any allegations of influence, as it is the case now.
There are allegations that the judges are not cooperating with the government in the war against graft, and it appears like corruption is fighting back. What do you think?
With profound respect, I do not share that view, of the official view, that corruption is fighting back through the judiciary. I would think that the government would need to go back to the drawing table and re-strategize. My experience is that if you have a watertight case, it's going to be difficult for any judge to free a criminal suspect. So the government has to invest in investigation and prosecution and be sure that when you are charging a suspect to court, you are ready to go on with your case. But if you file a case in court and midway, a nolle prosequi is filed by the Office of the Attorney General, there's nothing a judge can do other than striking out the case as required by law. In all the cases I've studied, I haven't seen any deliberate plan by the judiciary to frustrate the prosecution of corruption cases. On the part of lawyers, yes, there are senior lawyers who have engaged in dilatory tactics to frustrate the trial of corruption cases. But again, it's the duty of the government to also engage experienced lawyers who can match the tactics of such senior lawyers. For me, I think the government has a lot of homework to do if you want to win the battle against corruption. Whereas accused persons have access to the media, they have access to the best lawyers in the country, and the government has not been able to engage the services of those that the former head of state, President Olusegun Obasanjo, referred to as Ogbologbo lawyers. So you can't blame the judiciary for that.
So what suggestions will you give to government to rev up its anti-corruption fight?
The government, for me, has to, number one, re-strategize. I mean, for instance, I cannot see a basis or any rationale, any legal basis, in taking, serving and retires military officers to regular courts. If I had my way, they will all be arraigned before courts martial and special courts martial because the allegations relate to the counter-insurgency operations in the Northeast region. So even if you are retired, there is an exception to that law that you can be brought to trial if the allegation against you has to do with war-related crimes. Secondly, the government should or ought to have taken advantage of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act to ensure that cases, corruption cases, are conducted almost day by day. And to do that, you have to appoint more judges, you have to equip those courts, and make the conditions of the judges favorable, conducive to, speedy trial of cases. That is not what obtains now. Sometimes cases are adjourned because there is no light in the courts. That shouldn't be so in this age and time. Why should judges still be writing longhand in this age and time? Even journalists who cover judicial proceedings have recording gadgets with which proceedings are recorded and transcribed. So why can we not do that in the courts? So I think these are the problems. So for me, it's difficult to blame the judges. That is not to say that you don't have some cases where, there is need for improvement. But on a general level, I'm familiar with what is going on in the courts. And most of the cases that have been lost can be blamed on lack of proper investigation or prosecution. But I haven't seen judges who set out to deliberately frustrate the prosecution of corruption cases. And if the government knows one, of course, the National Judicial Council is there. You can file a complaint. But we must be humble in this society. Where we make mistakes, we must admit, and we must learn to go back and do our homework.